These are some of the more than 1,400 protests that took place this weekend, protesting the actions of the Trump administration. I mean, this is me showing you 20 of them all at once. I could show you 20 at once for this entire hour, and we still wouldn't get through all of them. If you follow me on Blue Sky, I posted footage from hundreds of different protests that all took place this weekend on Saturday. But just looking at this 20, let me tell you what you're looking at here. Starting at the top, going left to right, and then top to bottom, upper left-hand corner, that's Atlanta, Georgia. Police estimated at least 20,000 people turned out in Atlanta, Georgia. Los Angeles, where the LA Times said the number was easily in the tens of thousands. The crowd may have reached 100,000 in Los Angeles alone. Another huge one in Seattle. Minimum estimates there, maybe 14,000 people. But just keep going. Huntsville, Alabama, Portland, Oregon, Davenport, Iowa, Charlotte, North Carolina, Green Bay, Wisconsin, Lansing, Michigan, Palm Beach, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona had a huge one. Providence, Rhode Island, Salt Lake City, Utah was huge. Austin, Texas, Buffalo, New York, Columbia, South Carolina, Indianapolis, Indiana was massive. Sacramento, California, another huge one. Detroit, Michigan, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I mean, that's 20 of, again, more than 1,400. Here's 20 more. Again, left to right, top to bottom. Upper left-hand corner, that's Baltimore, Maryland. Then go left to right, across the top, and then we'll go down. Baltimore, Maryland is the upper left, then Pittsburgh, PA, Tampa Bay, Florida, Helena, Montana, Rapid City, South Dakota. Washington, D.C., the crowd was estimated at 100,000 people plus. Chicago, Illinois is next to D.C. there. The crowd estimate there was even larger than it was in Washington. Denver, Colorado, Tulsa, Oklahoma, New York City, where it was said to be easily 100,000 people, Honolulu, Hawaii, Boston, Massachusetts. Local press reports also cited nearly 100,000 people on Boston Common. And I'll tell you, the letters to the editor page today at the Boston Globe is full of people outraged that the Globe didn't give the event better coverage, given how huge it was in Boston. Then we've got Dallas, Texas, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Hartford, Connecticut, St. Paul, Minnesota. That was a massive turnout at St. Paul, Minnesota, at the state capitol. And then the last two there, Savannah, Georgia, and Cincinnati, Ohio. It was cold and rainy enough in Joplin, Missouri, that people put their signs in plastic bags. And if they didn't bring their mittens, they put their socks on their hands to try to keep warm while they held their signs. It rained like the dickens as well in northeast Louisiana, but that wasn't enough to keep people at home. They just held their umbrellas and their signs. In Terre Haute, Indiana, people just made space for all the umbrellas and smiled through it. They hung tough through the rain. In deep red Naples, Florida, organizers there say they had 7,000 people turn out in Naples, Florida. And yeah, that's good weather, so I know, but that's also a county that went for Trump by 33 points in November. And they had 7,000 people turn out on Saturday. Detroit, Michigan, when people came out, they waved across the river to Windsor, Ontario, where protesting Canadians waved right back. People protested in Dillingham, Alaska, on Bristol Bay. People protested at the end of the Iditarod sled dog race in Nome, Alaska. People woke up there Saturday morning to a balmy 0 degrees Fahrenheit, but still, people got out in Nome, Alaska to go say their piece. Look at the people turning out in Chagrin Falls, Ohio. Look at the people turning out in El Paso, Texas. In Pittsfield, Massachusetts, 2,000 people turned out in the drenching rain. Green Bay, Wisconsin had a really big crowd. Look at that. Look at Statesboro, Georgia. So many people turning out in so many red states. Look at this is Gulfport, Mississippi. In Gulfport, Mississippi, they marched with a big Trump sucks banner. Helena, Montana had a really big crowd. So did Knoxville, Tennessee. So did Northwoods, Wisconsin. I don't know if you watched the show on Friday night, but you might remember we had this group of older ladies in New Jersey. It's just a friend group in New Jersey who sent us pictures on Friday of them getting ready to protest this weekend. Again, this is a friend group for which the average age is 90. I've got 2 updates for you on that. First of all, they absolutely did get out and protest this weekend. Again, average age 90. in this group. You see some of them with their wheelchairs and or at least, excuse me, their walkers there. But also, I had guessed on Friday's show that the lady who was making the Dump Trump sign, see on the back of the table there, on the back on the right, I had guessed when we showed this picture on Friday night that the lady making the Dump Trump sign with the legs sticking out of the trash can, I had guessed she must have been an artist or an art teacher. Turns out I was right. She is a retired art teacher. And she, in fact, got out there this weekend with gusto.
I am here to protest Trump's programs. They are hurting us. They are hurting our children. And before long, they will hurt the country. So we have to dump Trump.
You know, the thing I most want to be when I grow up is an old person. And boy, am I getting there fast. But there were a lot of people out there this weekend who are beating me to it. And it was one of the most inspiring things about everything you saw this weekend. On the left side of your screen here, that's Montrose, Colorado. Hands off, one depression was enough. On the right side of your screen, that's Madison, Wisconsin. We 100-year-olds see no future with Trump. On the left side of your screen, that's Harrisonburg, Virginia. Hands off Medicaid. On the right side of your screen, that's Houston, Texas. This old lady is pissed and fighting for our Constitution. In Newtown, Connecticut, 2 canes and a quote from Senator Cory Booker's marathon filibuster this past week. This is a moral moment. In Grand Rapids, Michigan, they had a special protest just for seniors that you see on the left side of your screen there that was separate and apart from the thousands of people who flooded into downtown Grand Rapids for the big protest there. Grand Rapids not big enough to hold just one protest, one for seniors and one for a huge number of people in the downtown. In Flagstaff, Arizona, we had Good Dog, Good Trouble. And in Huntsville, Alabama, and lots of other places, we had Dogs Against Doge. In Los Angeles, we had some signs that made me really strongly want to know the backstory. On the left, you see here, you know times are bad if you partner with your ex-husband to protest. And you know times are bad if you partner with your ex-wife to protest. These two apparently were married for 30 years. They are obviously amicably split up now, but back together this weekend to protest the Trump administration. Also in Los Angeles this weekend, I don't want to know the backstory to I Bite Fascists. Let's just assume that's apocryphal. We saw this, Penguins Against Fascism. This was also Los Angeles. No tariffs, no tyrants, just krill. This is a protest sign we saw several different places this weekend. This is Riverside, California. Honk if you've never drunk texted war plans. We also saw variants of this calling back to one of the ugliest moments in the presidential campaign. They're eating the checks. They're eating the balances. They're devouring our democracy. This was San Jose, California. This was a good one from Newark, Delaware. Do not panic. Organize. A special one there for college campuses and law firms. We saw a lot of signs along this very scary general theme. This was from Washington, D.C. this weekend. Resist like it's 1938. Germany. Also from Washington, don't like surprises? Protect Noah, with the tornado imagery there. This was West Palm Beach, Florida, one of many signs and flags that we saw in support of Ukraine this weekend. These were signs from Atlanta, Georgia, which of course is home to the CDC. Markets down, measles up, fight for America. Hands off my earned Social Security. Hands off disability rights. Also, this one's nice. Mild-mannered church lady against oligarchy. In Honolulu, fascism is bad, says history. I can't sing, but here's one you can sing from Des Moines, Iowa. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. POTUS. We believe your fascist dream is something quite atrocious. We'll resist the oligarchs and always work for justice. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. POTUS. I cannot tell you how many times I had to practice that. Whew! Let's end the show right now. From a hot daytime protest in Baton Rouge, Louisiana on Saturday. You see on the right there, bad Doge with a squirt bottle with the water in it, off. bad Doge. And then you see resist the criminal and his little Doge too. In Boston, courage is contagious, with rage colored in on courage. Stand up now or bow down later. Also, Boston rejects tyranny. Fair point there. In Lansing, Michigan, this is the government our founders warned us about. In Novi, Michigan, they had great signs in Novi, Michigan. It's a hard no on being Russia 2.0. And my dad taught me to stand up to bullies. And this is a good one. I'm a really mad scientist. In Tupelo, Mississippi, President Musk must go. And no kings in America. In Omaha, Nebraska, look, they lined both the bridge here, the overpass bridge here, and both sides of the street. You see all the people here in Omaha? And the big sign there, better together. In New York City, let them eat Teslas. Also, some of the many penguins against tariffs, these ones in cute sweaters. In Columbia, South Carolina, we tariffed penguins, but not Russia? This one made me laugh out loud in Avon, Ohio. Thou shalt keep hands off women's health care. Chapter 4, verse 5, Book of Fallopians. In Seattle, only you can prevent fascist liars. We saw this one a bunch on Saturday. I've seen better cabinets at IKEA. And Cheyenne, Wyoming, oh, I love you. Hands off Medicare, Social Security, and Stormy Daniels. The reason I wanted to show all of those signs from these various protests is because some of them were very funny, but also because it shows you just a slice of how many different reasons people participated in these protests, how many different reasons people have to be mad at this administration and to be willing to stand up and protest against this administration. And if you're just thinking about how things are going to go in our country and what this means strategically, what it means baseline, whether or not you protested this weekend, whether or not you're even in sympathy with the people who protested this weekend, the huge variety of reasons people protested this weekend tells you that the proverbial tent of people allied against Donald Trump right now is really, really, really big. He's done enough in these 70, 80, whatever days to make a very large number of people mad at him and want to resist him for a million different reasons. And strategically, for the resistance against Trump, that's good. That's how you get more than 1,400 protests in all 50 states, including not one, but a bunch that hit 100,000 people or more. And in all of these protests, in all 50 states, there was no violence. There was no vandalism. There were no reported arrests of any protesters anywhere. In one town in Indiana, there was one report of one guy arrested who was a bystander, but then they let him go, and that was it. This was just a massive show of American people standing up peacefully saying, no way, nope, we are not having it. And no, we don't know what the direct impact of what these protests will be, what these protests will ultimately do. You almost never see that, right, as a direct consequence of a rally, right? You never know exactly what it's going to do. That said, there is a family that is coming home today to Sackett's Harbor in New York after almost that entire town showed up on Saturday to demand that they be returned. But everyone from Palm Beach Gardens near Trump's golf course in Florida to Anchorage, Alaska, to the huge crowd that turned out in Salem, Oregon, to the big crowd that turned out in Frankfort, Kentucky. I mean, look at this. To the huge crowd that we saw, massive crowd that we saw in Minnesota and St. Paul at the state capitol there. I can tell you one of the consequences of these people turning out in so many places this weekend and in such great numbers, one of the direct consequences we absolutely can measure is that everybody in all of these places knows that if they themselves are upset or worried or mad or scared about what this administration is doing, they know they are not alone. We, the whole country, know that the people are not just taking things lying down. The people are now proving that they will show up and they will do it everywhere. And likely, frequently. This is a point that I haven't heard made all that widely in the wake of these protests. But I think one of the important things strategically about the fact that this wasn't just one big protest in Washington, D.C. this weekend. I mean, it was a very big protest in Washington, D.C. It was over 100,000 people in Washington, which is a big deal. But the fact that it wasn't just Washington, that Washington was just one protest among many, is actually, I think, tactically one of the smart things that the organizers of this weekend's protest did. Because holding disparate protests all over the country, not just one big protest in one place, means that people can do this again and again and again. I mean, you look at really effective protest movements against rising authoritarianism in countries like Poland, where the population essentially rose up and took their democracy back through frequent mass protest. One of the things you realize about mass peaceful protest movements fighting against authoritarian takeover is that they have to stay peaceful and they have to be relentless. They have to frequently protest again and again and again. And it is hard and it is expensive to get yourself to travel to some faraway capital to protest if the protest is always in the capital. But it's not hard or expensive to get yourself to your town square or to the downtown in the city nearest you, or maybe even to your state capital, even if you have to do it time after time after time. And when we have seen it work against rising authoritarians in European countries, and all over the world, frankly, it has been when the protests have been recurrent. And I believe that is what we are about to start seeing in the United States of America, because this was April 5th. But it looks like it's going to happen again in 2 weeks, on April 19th. Saw you there on Saturday. See you there 2 Saturdays from now. Sustainable, repetitive, peaceful, nonviolent, big tent, everyone welcome demonstrations. With, yes, kids there, also dogs, also old people, also righteous indignation and fear and sadness, and also music and funny signs and a determination to outclass, to outlast, and to ultimately put down a would-be authoritarian revolution. Persistence. In Reuters Ipsos polling last week, the proportion of the American public who said they strongly identify with the MAGA movement is 11% of the population. The proportion of the American public who says they do not identify with the MAGA movement at all is 52% of the population. In the Marquette University poll that came out last week, Elon Musk's approval rating is underwater by 17 points. Americans say Trump's tariffs will hurt them rather than help them by a margin of 30 points. Americans say they are against Donald Trump closing the Department of Education by a margin of 30 points. Americans say they are against Trump's threats to annex Canada and make it the 51st state by a margin of 50 points. What Trump is doing and what he most wants to be known for is not popular, is deeply, deeply unpopular. But protesting against him sure looks like it's popular. Expect more of it.